Well, the virus has now killed more than 100 people in China, and new cases have been confirmed around the world.
So you don't want to frighten the American public.
France and South Korea have also got evacuation plans.
But you need to prepare for and assume
strongly warning Americans to avoid all non-essential travel to China.
That this is going to be a real serious problem.
France, Australia, Canada, the US, Singapore, Cambodia, Vietnam, the list goes on.
Health officials are investigating more than 100 possible cases in the U.S.
Germany, a man has contracted the virus.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
Japan, where a bus driver contracted the virus.
Coronavirus has killed more than 100 people there and infected more than 4,500.
We have to prepare for the worst, always, because if you don't and the worst happens.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Of June, year of our Lord 2020, War Room Pandemic. The nation is now infected with its second virus, the virus of Antifa. We're going to get into all of that live from our nation's capital. Episode 206, almost 9 million downloads, 100 million views on all of our platforms. John Fredericks Radio Network, FM 99.1, 103.9 in Chicago. Of course, Nexus.org, IRS, throughout the known world, over 250 million English-speaking people in every continent on Earth. On AmericasVoice.news, the streaming platform of the Trump Revolution, Dish Channel 219, and of course, Newsmax TV. Later in the day, almost simultaneously now, a little later in the day in Mandarin, with G News, G Media, GTV, blown through the firewall. Jack Maxey, Greg Manns, Raheem Kassam, big guest list today. We have Gordon Chang, we have General Robert Spalding, we have Jack Posobiec, and Posobiec will be in as co-host for the second hour. Colonel John Mills, and of course, Jim Schultz. Jim Schultz, the lawyer, is going to help us think through all this Antifa situation. Let's play, we're going to tee this up. We got a choice here, folks. We need to all be down, depressed, what's happening to the country. Hey, it's a fourth turning. You know, you got a pandemic, you got an economic inferno, you got a massive global financial crisis. We're at war with our enemies at the CCP, or at least they're at war with us. We're kind of figuring out what we're doing. Now we've got insurrection in the United States of America. But let's go play. We got a choice. Let's play yesterday.
Well, look, yesterday I think you saw the two alternative futures for America. In the launch in Cape Kennedy, you saw the opportunities of America leading the fourth industrial revolution. American capital, American workers, American made. And late at night, you saw what could happen of breaking down to anarchy and racial division. This is all incumbent. You talk about law and order. It's law and order predicated upon a robust economy. And this means American capital brought back to America to stop financing our enemies, bring American capital back for American jobs through American companies. That will make America the leader in the fourth industrial revolution. That is what this country needs. That's what the millennials need. I think yesterday's a great juxtaposition. We have two alternatives. And as Donald Trump says, nothing's inevitable. It's going to be human action and human agency that does that. I think it's now time to get focused on American jobs and bringing high value-added manufacturing jobs back to the American people. If you do that, you're not going to have these problems in these.
You got a choice in front of you. You're either going to have last night in Washington D.C. and in Philadelphia and in Los Angeles, or we're going to have Saturday afternoon in the hooking up yesterday on the space station. We're either going to be the leaders in the fourth industrial revolution as a manufacturing superpower, right? With our allies and with the Free Republic of China, right? Which will eventually happen, or we're gonna devolve into this racial and class war. Managed decline by our elites has a price, ladies and gentlemen. Cut CNN on MSNBC and just watch it all night. Fox News. That's managed decline. And hopefully when the American people, it's not theoretical, it's not some of the newspapers, not some of Steve Bannon running around this hair on fire, fourth turning, managed decline. You're seeing it. That's managed decline. Embrace it. Want to rub everybody's nose in it. Because that's not going away. That's managed decline. And this is not about Mr. Floyd and the very legitimate reasons to protest. Remember, protest is freedom of assembly. is guaranteed by the Constitution. It's one of our most basic rights, like freedom of speech, freedom of religion. America is built on protest. Been protesting Tea Party. The Tea Party revolt was protest, peaceful protest. But this is not. This is the peaceful protesters are one thing. That's who are out mainly in the daylight hours. This Antifa stuff is highly coordinated. These people are highly trained. I did a film on this. 6 years? I did a film on this. So it was in 2012. Andrew Breitbart was alive. Andrew Breitbart was obsessed with this topic, right? With Brandon Darby, Lee Stranahan. These guys knew this whole, the Antifa movement underneath the Occupy movement. It wasn't the kids down there at Occupy on Wall Street. It was the professional revolutionaries, the professional anarchists underneath it. Steve Cortez told me yesterday he's in Chicago. He goes through the line. They get the Gold Coast or, Michigan Avenue blocked off after it burned on Saturday. And, he goes inside using one of his press passes. He goes through. He's a big talk show host out in Chicago now. And the whole place is empty because the police in the National Guard cordoned it down. And then that night, 1,000 Antifa guys, and they have been locked down in place. If you see the way they're running around Washington, D.C., these are highly trained. These are highly trained people. This is coordinated. And here's the media. Here's the lie of the media. To sit there and say, as soon as the president says they're going to designate him a terrorist organization, as soon as the media comes out, you can't do that because it's just domestic. Hey, are your heads in the sand? This is why you got to come and listen to War Room Pandemic. I was going to change pandemic. We got another virus. You got the virus of Antifa. You got the virus of anarchy. This, ladies and gentlemen, embrace it. Don't want you to turn away from it. I don't want you to turn away from it. I want you to embrace it. This is what managed decline looks like. When that helicopter was above Washington, D.C. last night at about 11:30 at night, and you've got those fires all over the city, and they've defaced the Lincoln Memorial, and they've defaced the World War II Memorial, and they're burning St. John's Church, and they're trying to burn the Hay Adams Hotel, named after one of the greatest secretaries who state ever had, and the secretary to President Lincoln in the Civil War. When they're doing all that, I want you to embrace it. Don't look away from it. Do not look away from it. Don't cut on some Netflix thing, start streaming it. You got to watch it. You got to have your kids watch it. This is managed decline. And you got a choice. We're either going to have this and have versions of this and all of this and be at each other's throats, or we're going to lead this country to a new renaissance, right? There's a very clear choice. Saturday down in Cape Canaveral just didn't happen, right? It just didn't happen. Nothing's inevitable. That's human agency and human actions. Elon Musk and the great team at SpaceX that did a fantastic job along with their partners at NASA. That's the future. You want that future, or do you want Minneapolis on Friday and Saturday night? And the president of the United States embraced this, ladies and gentlemen, because the CCP is playing it nonstop. President of the United States went to the bunker on Friday night. Went to the bunker. I don't believe any president's ever been to the bunker. May have been down for a tour, but I'm saying go down under the auspices of the Secret Service. Went down to the bunker. Hey, you got to have accountability. If the president of the United States was directed to go to the bunker by the Secret Service because they thought they had an issue, the head of the Secret Service should be fired. The head of the Homeland Security should be fired. Today, accountability. If we had a situation on day 4 of this on Friday night in the White House that you had to take the president down to the bunker as directed by those guys, then you let the situation get out of control. Okay? People have to start to be held accountable for this. Now, we're going to have Jim Schultz on here, former White House counsel's office. But here's why we're blessed. In Fourth Turnings, remember, in Fourth Turnings, people who seem marginal all of a sudden become the man. Raheem Kassam, who's been doing this for a decade. He knows more about Antifa in London. He's now working on a massive story down in Brazil. Antifa's not a domestic. Anybody, CNN and these people put up, that is a stone cold lie. This is a very sophisticated, very organized, very well-funded operation, right? And I'll turn it over now to Raheem Kassam to tell about London, right? You've been working on this for years in your anti-jihad efforts all those years, even before the Brexit stuff. You were the anti-jihad guy. The Antifa's up to the neck in this thing. And this is not, the news media is making, just some kids or just some kids from, just some white kids. Hey, This is a highly organized, and I give a hat tip. They're tough hombres, right? They're tough hombres. They don't mind. They became last night over in Washington in Lafayette Square Park. They bring aluminum baseball bats. Note to self: when a guy brings a baseball bat to a protest, he ought to immediately be arrested. Okay, he is not there for spring training. He's not there to take a couple of cuts to see how see if he can hit to the opposite field. Okay, lay down a bunt. He's there looking for trouble. Automatically ought to be rolled up. You're coming with us. Check his driver's license. He's from out of town. Federal offense. Right? Jim Schultz is going to be on here about all the laws we've got to put this down. You want law and order? Let's have law and order. But like I said, law and order has got to be to a purpose. The purpose has got to be an economic revival of this country so the kids are not Russian serfs. Because right now the Russian serfs, they don't own anything. They're not going to own anything. They're not part of this system. And this is what happens when you look at throughout history, when they're not bought into the system, when they're not bought in economically, when they're not bought in socially. And if you want to have them married and having kids and having families and being productive members of society, you got to bring some jobs back. And those jobs can't be baristas at Starbucks. I'm not putting down those jobs. Those are terrific jobs. You've got to be high value added manufacturing jobs that you can make a career out of, right? And you can have a family. You don't do that. Don't look away. I want you to brace it. I want to rub your nose in this. This is managed decline. This is no longer theoretical. You got a pandemic. You got next week, they're going to announce on Thursday another couple of million, I'm sure, unemployed. On Friday, they're going to announce the number for May. It's going to be, Hassett already told you, it's going to be 23 to 25%. You're going to have 40 to 50 million Americans out of work. University of Chicago tells us 42% of those jobs are gone. Gone. So the time for talk is over, right? The time for talk is over. The time for action is now. And you're part of this. Hashtag war and pandemic. Remember, you've had more of an impact on the world than so many people. That's how we're public enemy number one in China. You know why? Because they know you're listening. And guess what? They're mocking you right now. They're ridiculing you, saying, "Hey, how's that going? How's that special on Saturday, Bannon, with the Hong Kong guys? You're getting a little of that, right? Are you and Pompeo standing with the protesters like you're standing with the Hong Kong guys?" Well, listen, it is totally and completely different, right? That's the difference in the two systems. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a war to the knife. This is a war to the death. One system's going to work, or one's going to win and one's going to lose. You're either going to get their totalitarian, scientific, technocratic, materialistic system, right, that they run, or you're going to get ours. And ours is very messy. But we have to take action against its enemies. Mr. Raheem Kassam.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here for the entry level stuff. Let's dive right in. Antifa is nothing new. It's nothing new. It's well established. We've seen it all across the United States, but we've seen it more in detail in Europe over the last couple of decades. But really what we're looking at here, and really when I went out to the White House area on Sunday morning to document what had happened the night before, what I was looking for were telltale signs of organization, and telltale signs of organization by especially a particular part of these protests that we've come in the past to know from the G20 protests and so forth as the Black Bloc. These are the guys whose job it is to create the circumstances wherein violence appears to be, to the rest of the crowd, the only way to deal with either being blocked in by police, being shot tear gas canisters at, and they ramp it up, not just hour after hour in those moments in the protest, but day upon day as well. And so here we are, having just experienced the sixth day of this. Now, the question that we have to ask, the foremost question...
It's outrageous that the law enforcement in this country allowed this thing to get there in the sixth day. I would just say somebody's going to be held accountable. The Antifa guys have been around a long time. And let me tell you something else. I made Occupy en Masse. Mark Cuban's company picked it up for distribution. Andrew Breitbart started with Brandon Darby. One thing I found out about Black Bloc and Antifa, they're smart, they're tough, they're dedicated, they're disciplined, they're organized, they're financed. Don't think this is not the amateur division. These are professionals, and they're good, and they're anarchists, right, Mr. Raheem Kassam? And they're good. Hang on, we got Papa. We'll be back in a second with Raheem and the team.
Brett Favre, legendary quarterback. Jerry Rice, legendary wide receiver.
You ready for your weekly meeting?
Yeah, we're ready.
Let's do this. Let's stack the deck.
When legends play, they wear Copperfit Advanced Back Pro. Copperfit's best-selling compression back support just got better with new double-band adjustable supports for customizable compression when you need it most.
Since I put this on, I feel so much better. The core is the most important thing. To know that I'm stabilized here. Whatever I'm doing, I can give it 100%.
4 built-in stabilizing supports designed to improve posture and help reduce lower back stress and strain.
You have back pain and it's affecting your everyday life. You do something.
If you can find something to help you get back out and be active like Copperfit, go for it.
Absolutely.
Do not give up.
A high-performance compression fabric infused with the powerful properties of copper, 360-degree flexible mobility, and lightweight, durable construction.
Nothing more painful than having back pains. If you're aching, if you feel like you can't work out anymore, you can. And that's with Copperfit.
Yeah. It's for all of us who still want to be active, still want to compete.
Way to go. That's what I'm talking about. Man, this really does feel good. It feels to me like the fountain of youth.
Copperfit's best-selling back support just got bigger, badder, and better. Or call 1-800-944-5851. Or on the web at advancedbackpro.com. Get yours now for only $19.99.
This does feel good.
That's what I've been saying.
You think it was fair?
It was fun.
Play for the love of the game.
Copperfit, live limitless.
Jim and Joanne are here to pick up the same prescription. They both know the system is not on their side. They both know drug costs are out of control. But one of them is taking back control with GoodRx.
Next.
So while he's paying that much, even with his insurance, she's paying this much just by using GoodRx. Use GoodRx to compare prices at pharmacies in your area and stop paying too much for your prescriptions. Download the free app today and take back control.
I sent your new prescription to the pharmacy.
Any idea how much it will cost?
You have a choice. Insurance or GoodRx?
I have insurance.
Insurance is not what it used to be. People struggle to get their prescriptions covered, and prices keep rising. I recommend GoodRx. You get free coupons to save on your prescriptions. Compare prices to find the best discounts.
GoodRx. Smart.
Stop paying too much for your prescriptions. Download the free app today.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to a beautiful 1st of June in Washington, D.C. Let's hope it's beautiful throughout the entire night. Listen, this is not about the problem with the Antifa guys, the anarchists. They're taking over what is the very legitimate. I mean, it's the memory of Mr. Floyd and what happened in Minneapolis. That's just not acceptable. In Minneapolis police force, this is the liberal mayor, progressive mayor of Minneapolis from William and Mary, which is a college in the heart of our listening audience down there in Williamsburg. The Minneapolis police force is, to me, pathetically trained. What happened is absolutely, it's mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. And this is for Mr. Floyd and his family, is they got to be in shock and a horrible tragedy. In the police force, in their behavior, retreating from the 3rd precinct and letting that go and letting all the minority businesses around there be burned out. I mean, I don't know how these minority businessmen are going to get up and going. We're going to get Jim Schultz on here in a moment from the White House counsel's office, formerly, first couple of years of the Trump administration. Understands Philadelphia better than anybody. Terrible situation in Philadelphia. The protesters have a legitimate right to be out there. You don't have to agree with everything the protesters say, but look, they get a legitimate right, and the memory of Mr. Floyd is being overtaken now by these professional anarchists. And that's also not right, because then that's going to be the Floyd situation, going to be a secondary situation. That should be the primary situation, not what we got to deal with these professional anarchists. Now, Jim, yeah.
Well, actually, just very quickly on that, you hit upon something that is a primo tactic as far as Antifa and these guys are concerned. They hijack the issue at hand, which in this case happens to be, what appears to be the murder of George Floyd, right, captured on camera. But then what they want is they want more police violence that they can point to. They want more death that they can point to help spiral this out of control. And before we get to Jim, I'll say this: not just spiral it out of control domestically. You're now seeing sympathetic marches and action taking place and starting up all around the world, thousands in London and beyond.
But let's go. I want to go before we bring Schultz in, because the key is to talk about this thing in the international. Is when you they've hijacked or trying to hijack the murder of Mr. Floyd, right? And the protest around him, the legitimate protest around this whole thing about policeism. Is it systemic racism or is it bad apples, right? When you confronted Antifa in London, there was a whole other issue they hijacked, correct?
Which one specifically?
The one that they took the whole thing of, I think it was the radical jihad, and they came up and Antifa was making a huge deal about that when you first confronted these guys back in London.
Well, they typically just glob on to any perceived social justice outrage, and whether it's a legitimate one or an illegitimate one, it's this.
But they hijack it.
Absolutely.
They try to instigate additional violence, so that becomes the issue.
And what they also do is, and here's the thing: I don't like this narrative that's being portrayed right now that it's just these middle class white Antifa people. What they also do is they spread that behavior to others of all stripes, and people who had never been involved with Antifa before, people who had never marched side by side with them, people who had never graffitied buildings or thrown bricks through windows. Their job is to recruit and embolden others to do the same.
They're also David Horowitz, who was in Occupy Unmasked. He said, because he was a revolutionary during the 60s, he came in as a Marxist. He was one of these guys with the Black Panthers and the Students for Democratic Society. He was a hardcore leftist. His point, the most chilling line in the entire film of Occupy Unmasked, he says what their motto is: the issue of the revolution is the revolution. The issue of the revolution is the revolution. There is nothing you can go down to the Antifa guys today. There's no set of issues. There's no set of issues that you can sit there and talk to them about. There'll be other issues. The point of the Antifa is the revolution. Let's bring in Jim Schultz now, former of the White House counsel's office and one-time contributor to CNN. Although I don't see a lot of Jim, I don't see a lot of your mug on CNN anymore. They can't say this about pandemic. Now it should be your wheelhouse. When are you going to get back on CNN? Do we have Jim? Okay, Vish, let's get on top of
Jim,
this.
but Jim doesn't have us.
Okay, let's go to.
Well, let me do a little bit of more of an explainer here, because in fact I was kind of hoping that would happen, so I'd get a little bit more mic time, because this is important about what we're seeing in terms. You say organization. And, Madeline Peltz at Media Matters, who's listening to this today, and CNN, whose news roundup I listened to this morning, they say things unqualified, such as Antifa is a liberal-leaning, non-organization organization. And in fact, if we have time while we're trying to get Jim, Greg, I have that clip, the tweet I sent you from this morning, of what happens when you ask Alexa for the news this morning and what the CNN feed through Amazon's Alexa service is telling people about Antifa. Do we have that clip?
To the widespread protests, President Trump has said the United States will designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. Antifa, which stands for anti-fascist, is a broad, decentralized group of people with liberal-leaning beliefs. Experts say the government has no existing
liberal-leaning beliefs.
No, I think we need to mail her a copy of Animal Farm or something, because not everything on the left is liberal.
Yeah. Well, there's also some very interesting breaking news coming out of New York right now. The Deputy Commissioner for Intel and Counterterrorism, John Miller, said there is a high level of confidence within the NYPD that these unarmed groups had organized scouts, medics, and supply routes of rocks, bottles, and accelerants for breakaway groups to commit vandalism and violence. There are strong indicators they planned for violence in advance, using at times encrypted communication, and 1 out of every 7 arrested was from out of state in New York.
It's not just encrypted communications, by the way. A lot of the organization is taking place using these same social media platforms, by the way, who will censor the president for what they call something that's fake news or whatever it is. But you can go on, as we've been going on here in Washington, D.C., and check your local feed and see people organizing this stuff on there. Really interestingly as well, there was what you said about the supply lines. When I went on Sunday morning, and I say, I'm used to this, I know what I'm looking for. Suitcases, down alleyways, tucked behind buildings. Suitcases which will be filled with projectiles, will be filled with medical equipment, will be filled with toothpaste and baking soda and milk and the sort of things you need when you are trying to have a violent confrontation with police.
Here's my problem. Bringing shorts. Here's my problem. NYPD's got the best anti-terrorism. They stopped 14 terrorist attacks. What has happened under de Blasio? They stopped 14 attacks. They should be in front of that. I shouldn't hear that as a news flash in the morning of day 7. Your thing about the suitcases, this is the nation's capital, the most powerful nation on earth. And it's not like you're in the suburbs or someplace else. You're within a block. You're within 500 yards of the White House in the Situation Room. There shouldn't be any suitcases. That stuff should all be monitored. Boom. That should be able to shut down. I don't want to hear the police. And quite frankly, there's a little bit of whining. We got to start, if we're going to hold kids accountable, if we're going to hold rioters accountable, we just got to start holding, you want law and order? Let's start holding law and order accountable for competence. For competence. And this is not, they're being held back, they're being held. Nobody's holding them back in Washington, D.C. I don't want to see that they got suitcases with Molotov cocktails and they're slipping those in and then burning St. John's. Protect St. John's. Protect the World War II monument. Protect. How can we possibly have the Lincoln Memorial be graffitied? It's not acceptable. And it's not acceptable. The law and order has got to get more competent. They got to be on top of things.
And the other thing is you have to look at the targets that they're choosing, right? These are definitely politically motivated, and they're not motivated by what we would think would be the protests for people who have a legitimate protest. Look, this whole country was united 7 days ago.
Once you leaked that they took once they took the president to the bunker, that's a win. Let's call it what it is. That's a win. They're going to be around the White House. They're surrounding the White House every night now. They're going to do it until you shut it down. We got a couple. Jim Schultz, thank you very much for joining us. Sorry we didn't get the first hookup. Walk through why you don't think President Trump can designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. Okay, we got to bounce.
Hello?
We got to cut that.
Jim's not listening to his phone. That's
Hello?
okay. Here's the thing. We talk about the suitcases in St. John's, right? St. John's, this historic church opposite Lafayette Square, opposite the White House, where that wasn't just defaced, attacked. And by the way, that's the alleyway wherein I saw behind it the suitcase. So that was a staging area for them, as far as the Antifa guys are concerned.
You tell me law enforcement can't, in 100 yards, 50 yards from Lafayette Park, can't see where there's a staging area?
It's so very clear that this was, and the graffiti on the wall as I walked down that alleyway behind St. John's said "Kill cops." Okay, not protest. This is over incitement to murder that's going on here. Now they were setting on fire dumpsters and pushing them into the police lines. Setting on fire bits of material and throwing them into the police lines. And actually there were reporters, and they got to give them credit, the reporters from the Daily Caller, reporters from Yahoo News, reporters from Fox out there in Lafayette Park who were seeing all of this stuff firsthand. But it's taken us 6 days to get our heads around the fact that actually this is organized. These people are not just showing up with homemade placards and protesting. They have equipment with them. They have communications. They have strategies. If you look at what happened last night, where the police are moving in tandem across 3 different zones around the White House, that's because they know, and they finally got their house together last night. They know that these guys that are protesting have a strategy.
Who got their house together last night?
Well, they were more competent last night.
They're more competent. They burned St. John. We got the video. By the way, AVN's going to be playing thing. They burned St. John's Church.
But it didn't last to 3 a.m. That's the difference, right? As soon as this stuff started to kick off,
I don't consider that
until 11 p.m. you had a relative mood of calm out there. And when the curfew struck, that's when they started lighting things on fire. That's when they started hurling projectiles more. And that's when the police lines moved in.
Did you not know that the curfew was going to start at 11 o'clock? That was a failure at the 11 o'clock of the curfew. Okay, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in a moment.
The hottest new razor is taking the men's grooming world by storm. And if you don't have it, you need it. MicroTouch Solo, the hyper-advanced full-body razor that trims, shapes, edges, and even shaves with micro-precision. And it's totally safe to the touch. Go solo for full-body control with one tool. No nicks, bumps, or ingrown hairs. Edge beards and goatees with one touch. Clean your neck, barber shop perfect. And check this out. Snap on the guide to tame growth and perfectly shape your full beard. And keep new growth stubble trimmed exactly to your style. And look, the Solo Full Body Groomer trims precisely the length of hair you want. Snap off the guide and remove unwanted hair anywhere in seconds. What makes Solo different than your ordinary razor? Dual-sided German stainless steel blade. Shave up or down at 200 microstrokes per second. The Ultra Flex pivoting head contours perfectly to you for precise results. 3 custom grooming guides for control of exact length and shape. And a built-in LED light so you never miss a spot. Solo is so precise, you need no creams, no soaps, and no water. Ditch the old man clippers and toss the scissors. You've got to go solo. Call 1-800-709-9777 or go online at microtouchsolo.com and get yours now for only $19.99. Complete with German stainless steel blade, pivoting head, built-in spotlight, and 3 custom grooming guides. Everything you see here for just $19.99. The all-new MicroTouch Solo Full Body Groomer. The one tool that does it all.
At Leaf Filter, we're on a never-ending journey to end gutter cleaning forever. Whoa! Way too dangerous, Bill. Say goodbye to that ladder. Way too clogged, Melissa. Those black gutters are causing serious damage to your home. Look at these cracks in your foundation. Leaf Filter, the nation's #1 rated gutter protection system, will keep you safe and protect your home. Leaf Filter's stainless micromesh screen fits over your existing gutters and is guaranteed to filter out everything except for water. No more leaves or debris in your gutters for the life of your home. Schedule your free gutter inspection and estimate, just like Paul. With Leaf Filter's lifetime warranty, we guarantee you'll never have to clean those nasty gutters again. Everybody okay with that?
I
sure am. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or go to getleaffilter.com for your free gutter inspection and estimate. Act now and save 15% off your purchase.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to War Room. Raheem, walk us through one more time why this is an international organization.
So Antifa is a decades-old organization that sort of tries to harken back to post, or rather Nazi Germany, and the Anti-Fascist Action Network that took root there, then actually fighting real fascists, actually fighting real Nazis, but also linked directly with the communist entities there. Now, I've said for years and years that there are a lot of these guys who are part of these Antifa groups who are effectively just trying to relitigate the Spanish Civil War. They think of everything in the framework of the Spanish Civil War, the fascists versus the anti-fascists. But the Antifa that we know today is very, very different from an anti-fascist organization. They are overtly necessarily authoritarian in their way of thinking about things, i.e. if you don't agree with us, you should be smashed to bits, your property should be smashed to bits, your countries should be smashed to bits. And the other part of Antifa that people are forgetting here is that this is not some domestic organization within Portland or at Berkeley or on the streets of Washington, D.C. This is an international network of people, and they have sort of the iceberg way of dealing with this thing. There is the legitimate stuff that is above water and the illegitimate stuff like the black bloc, which hides beneath the surface. There are entities and organizations all around the Western world that have often worked with governments, often have received government funding, often have worked with police organizations all around the world that have tied back into the broader Antifa network. These are organizations that either offer some level of sympathy for Antifa, like the Hope Not Hate group does in the United Kingdom, who get very litigious when you talk about anything to do with them being part or alongside with Antifa. But there is so much evidence of this. And when you look at where the funding for these things comes from, okay, you have local anti-hate networks where you have funding from local authorities and councils and local government. You have national campaigns which actually pour money in. Gordon Brown, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, actually helped set up Hope Not Hate. And if you look at where these guys come from, the people who are in charge of these organizations and institutions, you find they go back to the hyper radicals, and whether it's the Weather Underground in the United States or whether it's the hardline communist networks, the Searchlight magazine people in the United Kingdom and all across Europe as well, there's no doubting that they have access to cash, they have access to great legal resources, they have access to government officials and also the media. That's one of the things we often forget, is that a lot of these people who make excuses for Antifa and who work with them often talk to and are involved heavily with mainstream media journalists. Many mainstream media journalists, remember, have been radicals of their own sort, whether it's back in their university days or whatever. And that's why you're seeing now the MSNBCs, their reporters, making excuses for Antifa, saying, oh, it's not really an organization, or, oh, as you heard, we played the clip earlier, CNN saying they're a liberal non-centralized organization. It's nonsense.
The definite lie is that it's just a domestic operation. It's actually, I think, more intense in Europe than it is in the United States, or it has been. In Brazil, there's a situation coming out of Brazil that Raheem's working on, the team's working on right now. You're going to have one of the top reporters down there that's being harassed, and he's being harassed by Antifa. He's afraid he's going to be assassinated, right? He may be a little overheated there, but he's being harassed, right, by Antifa in Brazil. This is a global operation.
And the other thing is, here we are in the United States. We had this awful thing with Floyd. Everybody, I don't know anybody who was not emotionally scarred by watching that video.
They should have held those officers that day and held them without charges, and not let them go on and then charge them that night. I don't know what I don't know why it took them. All four of them should have held them like you hold guys. If you catch a bad guy, you don't let the guy go because you're going to charges. You hold the guy pending charges. They should have been held. This is to me the mayor, the prosecutors out there, the police, a group of incompetents, right? To be so ill-trained that something like this could happen. And then after it happened, it's just kind of like, well, we'll figure it out over time.
But then on a larger scale, you have this legitimate protest that's going on, which I think at the start really did seem to be emotional and very real. And then you have outside groups who do not care about Mr. Floyd, do not care about the basics. They want revolution. So they have hijacked a legitimate movement on the part of African Americans to bring to light this awful occurrence. And now it's being taken over by outside agitators. I don't think it's just
African Americans. I think it's all Americans.
All Americans.
And I don't think the legitimacy as that's been taken. Those protest every day. If you want to protest, you've got the energy to go out and do it, and the time to do it, and the focus to do it. Protest. That's what this country is based upon. It's freedom of assembly, right? Freedom of speech. You got an idea, you got a way. Protest. And there's a big difference. The protesters are saying, hey, you got systemic racism in the police department, and you got someone there saying, hey, there shouldn't be any police department. Hey, I'm not saying I agree with that view, but that's a view. You got to argue it out and win at the ballot box. So that should be every day. This is different. This is organized. This is anarchy. And Raheem makes the great point when you study the Occupy movement, you study that, you had the peaceful people at top. Their whole thing is to instigate the police department. And this is one of the reasons, look, I'm a law and order guy, but coming down on the competence, one of the things you're seeing is so many people are choosing not to go into the profession because it's too tough, right? It's too hard. You're always under a microscope. You're one mistake away from having your entire life ruined, right? Or you make a mistake and, you got to pay for it because it was a mistake, but you got to pay for it. So it's been one of the big problems. Talk about how organized are they here? Talk about, because this is the whole anti-globalization thing, the anti-Starbucks movement, the whole anti-occupying mass. What has been their evolution here?
Well, this is the interesting thing. I mean, I went down to our version of Occupy back in the day, which was Occupy the London Stock Exchange, which was #OccupyLSX. And I went down there myself. I was one of the only people to go down there and make a short documentary from a critical perspective of what these guys were saying. But when I went down there, and sometimes I watch that video back, I'm going to tweet it out later today, they actually express very similar, if not the same, concerns as many on the MAGA side. Neoliberalism has gone too far. Globalization has gone too far. There's no feedback mechanism for the ordinary person. We don't have any jobs. We don't have any property. We're not worth anything. We never will be worth anything. We're modern day serfs, as you say, right? But what a lot of these guys don't understand and fail to understand and overtly refuse to understand is that communism, and I really do mean communism, and I'm not talking about your sort of soft socialism. I'm not talking about welfareism. The Antifa guys want is communism. They fail to understand that communism is not the A in the circle, right? The anarchy sign. In fact, that is the opposite. That is, you don't get more sort of government programs, you don't get more government handouts when there's anarchy. But if we roll some of those pictures from the National Pulse up on the screen right now and look for those A's in the circles, this is where you know the difference between a lot of the Black Lives Matter people who are concerned about the killing of George Floyd versus the communist elements of the Black Bloc taking place there. These guys are the ones, and there is plenty of video evidence out there to suggest this already, who are going in there actually against the will of others within those groups. And they're spray painting the anarchy symbol everywhere. I saw spray paint on one of the banks outside the White House, 666 logo on it, pentagrams, all of this stuff. And their job, the sole reason that they are there, is to provoke more violence. And violence begets violence as far as they're concerned. And they want to show the not just the nation, they want to show the entire world these images of American police cracking down on the, these quote unquote protesters. That's the images that they want. It serves the purpose of the Chinese Communist Party, as we've seen them using it, these images across the weekend. It serves the purpose of these far left activists and politicians. We heard Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez this weekend saying, if you do not cow to our demands, then you're not going to have peace, right? That is a legislator in the US Congress who is demanding that the American public is held to ransom for the work of a couple of thousand Black Bloc Antifa communists out there. So this is now entrenched. This now has roots within the institutions, and in fact, the one thing that worries me the most about all of this, and the thing that makes it the hardest to get to grips with Antifa and either designate it a global terror entity or even for the police tackling these guys out on the streets, is they have the support, whether it's material support in terms of funding through NGOs and other institutions, or whether it is the rhetorical support of police chiefs, of legislators, of state senators, all the way up into the US Congress.
Let's hear Bratton. Do we have the Bratton clip that we can play? Is that ready to go? No. If not, let's go to let's play the clip from CNN that shows it talks about it being a liberal organization. I want to play that one more time. We got that?
That was extraordinary to me this morning when I heard.
No, this shows you. Not just that, to say it's a domestic operation, they should know better with their international thing. As many times they covered in London, do we have it or not?
We
response to the widespread protests, President Trump has said the United States will designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. Antifa, which stands for anti-fascist, is a broad, decentralized group of people with liberal-leaning beliefs. Experts say the government has no existing legal authority to apply the label to a group that is wholly domestic.
This is information warfare. This is information warfare, right? That's from CNN?
That is from CNN this morning.
That is information warfare, ladies and gentlemen. That's information warfare just like the CCP was giving it to you, okay? That is information warfare. Everything she said is a lie, okay? It's not a liberal organization. It's an anarchist, hard left organization.
And it's not a domestic organization.
They're proud of it. By the way, when I made Occupy en Masse, I kept hearing how they played it all the time for themselves because we took the raw footage from Oakland and these other places, and these guys are hardcore. I mean, they're coming at you. Yesterday had the baseball bats thing. These guys are not, and they're not afraid of taking a punch, right? That's my point. These are tough hombres. Okay, let's hit it. Let's do it.
Trump has said the United States will designate Antifa.
Okay, we'll get to that in the next segment. I want to go back to
juggling here.
Yeah, it's breaking news. That's what we got. By the way, is the White House fully staffed today, or what are we doing at the White House? Are people showing up to work?
I don't believe. My sources tell me that the White House is in a situation whereby the broader complex is being told that they can work from home. But is that still because of the pandemic, or is that because of this? No, that's because of this.
This is people who are coming back post-pandemic.
Yeah.
Although the city's still in lockdown.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about the mayor, is that we either have a pandemic, or these Democratic mayors either have a pandemic or we don't. Where's the social distancing? And I'm not trying to be a wise guy. Is the virus now going to explode because we've had the protests and they didn't enforce the social distancing? The same people that you couldn't go to church. Fauci said over the weekend you couldn't take Holy Communion, right? You couldn't do communion.
Well, this is what's weird. Bowser imposes a curfew. Mayor Bowser in Washington, D.C. imposes a curfew later than anywhere else in any of these cities suffering from this. Rather than 8 p.m., rather than 9 p.m., it's 11 p.m., which really means people aren't off the streets until 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, right? And then has the audacity to go up in the media and say, I am worried about a second wave as a result of all this stuff. You are facilitating a second wave by not instituting a harder crackdown, by not policing this stuff efficiently. If there is another wave of coronavirus in Washington, D.C., which, by the way, is one of the hotspots in the country right now.
I think it's the hotspot.
Is Mayor Bowser? It's on Mayor Bowser's head.
Why did they select? Maybe we'll get to this with Jack Posobiec, who's going to join us here the next. What about? Why did they choose 11 o'clock at night? Why did they choose 11? Nobody's got to. Everybody else. In California, I think L.A. was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, wasn't it? They started rousing those guys out of Santa Monica at like 7 o'clock our time, 4 o'clock. Every place else has got a 8 o'clock curfew. Okay, Jack Posobiec's going to join us. International influence in all of this next.
Tired of struggling with regular mirrors that don't adjust so you can't get close enough? Need both hands but you don't have a stand? Can't move in the right direction to see your own reflection? You need Flexible Mirror, the bendable, light-up magnification mirror that comes to you. Watch. Just stick it on and turn the base. The super suction locking mechanism means you can put it on any smooth surfaced place, horizontal or vertical. Lock it onto any mirror, table, or desk. Use it in the shower, even on a window. The secret is Flexible Mirror's super strong articulating arm that's attached with an ingenious ball and socket so it can swivel and rotate for the perfect angle. And look how strong it holds. The mirror is precision crafted with 10 times magnification and crystal clear optics. And with a soft glow LED ring, you'll get picture-perfect lighting to highlight every detail. Flexible Mirror makes shaving, applying makeup, hairstyling, grooming, and accessorizing easier than ever before. Plus, men, listen up. The 10 times magnification makes it perfect for giving your beard a detailed trim. Whatever you need to do, Flexible Mirror comes to you. Plus, the contemporary chrome accents add a lovely modern touch to any room. Stop struggling to put in your delicate contacts and let Flexible Mirror come to you. So it's much easier to do. too. Similar mirrors can cost as much as $100, and they don't even come to you. But you can get flexible mirror for the special TV discount price of just $19.99. We guarantee you'll love the flexible mirror so much that it comes with our 90-day, no questions asked money-back guarantee. And here's the best part. We give you free shipping on your entire order. That's right, free shipping. Here's how to order.
To order, call 1-800-987-6183. That's 1-800-987-6183 or order online at tryflexiblemirror.com.
I'm Nick Bolton, and these days...
Hey there.
Hey there. It seems everybody has a pair of tactical sunglasses.
Good morning.
Morning. But what if you already wear glasses? Then you need these flip-up tack glasses. These new glasses fit right over your existing eyewear to give you all the benefits of our tack glasses while you comfortably wear your regular glasses. Plus, like all tack glasses, flip-up tack glasses feature Bell & Howell light filtering technology that makes invisible objects suddenly become visible. There's just nothing like them on the market today. Here you go, buddy.
Thanks, Nick.
Act now to get your flip-up tack glasses for just $19.99, and we'll even ship them to you free. But wait, order today and you can get a second pair. Just pay a separate fee. Here's how to order.
Call 1-800-284-4127 or go to flipupglasses.com. That's 1-800-284-4127 or order online at flipupglasses.com.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
If you thought it was an uncertain world just with a pandemic and a global confrontation with the Chinese Communist Party, let's add on to that anarchy in the United States of America. We've got a choice for our future. That choice can either be what you saw with SpaceX the other day. It's the fourth industrial revolution. It's built upon entrepreneurs that have a vision and the drive and the tenacity to make it happen. That's why if you're an entrepreneur, you want to have NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud business system. 20,000 companies throughout the world use NetSuite. And if you're an entrepreneur, even if you're thinking of being an entrepreneur, you need to know the people at NetSuite. You need to know this software package. They've got a system up online. You go to our website, netsuite.com/Bannon. Go there. See the 7 action steps you should be taking today as an entrepreneur, whether your business is $1 million or $100 million in revenue. Or even if you don't have a business today, you can start to think like an entrepreneur when you use NetSuite by Oracle. Remember, fortune favors boldness, and boldness favors NetSuite by Oracle. Okay, let's go back to, we got Jack Posobiec, Naval Intelligence Officer, fluent in Mandarin. Posobiec and Antifa. Is it a domestic? We got the media saying, well, the president can't designate it as a terrorist organization. It's just a domestic. It's just a bunch of kids that, it's a bunch of kids with liberal leanings that are misguided, right? Or, disorganized. Or is that what Antifa is?
Well, Steve, the media is playing a semantics game, as they usually do. Antifa, or anti-fascism, is actually, I like to think of it as the name of the ideology, in the way you would describe white supremacy or radical Islam. That's the name of the ideology. But you can go to Antifa manuals. They're available throughout the internet. I've been posting some throughout the day on my Twitter account, where they specifically talk about using front group identities, such as we stand against fascism, we stand against racism, we stand with the rights of immigrants, and then using those front groups to then dig in and infiltrate, create linkages and connections with more mainstream groups like a Black Lives Matter, one of these groups, as Raheem was just discussing, that receives a lot of government funding in some cases in some areas. And so they then infiltrate those groups with the express purpose of then waiting for these events to happen. It's almost the Ferguson formula, if you will, to see what happened there in 2014, and then exploiting them for their own purposes, which of course do coincide with purposes that we've talked about from the CCP, right? This is the destabilization of the American system. They are against the entire system. What they call fascism, we would call the American system of government.
Have they been, go ahead.
It's incredibly important what Jack's saying here, because if you look at the pictures from over the weekend, especially the ones in Washington, D.C., but I'm sure it's taking place all over the place also, the graffiti up there, the predominance the predominant message is not justice for George Floyd. It's not anything like that. It's smash capitalism. Capitalism is murder. They're targeting
We're coming
banks,
for your money.
Financial institutions, even union-owned things. AFL-CIO, the bank next door, the Bank of Labor next door to that. This is
AFL-CIO is the headquarters of basically labor in this country, right? It's right down the street from the White House.
This is an
torched.
attack on the system,
Yes.
the way that the system works in the United States. This isn't. And I got to tell you again, we go around and we look at these things and we look for tells about who's involved. And again, it's the anarchy symbols, it's the anti-capitalist things, it's the some of the pictures that I sent around from this weekend. Says we're not asking for freedom was one of the graffitis that was up outside the Eisenhower Executive Office building this weekend.
Yeah, Raheem, you and I have been 2 years ago in London when we faced off with Antifa in the streets with Tommy Robinson and all of that was going on. That was 2 years ago in London. That was my first time seeing Antifa in Europe, and yet I was completely familiar with all of the same signs, the slogans, the chants, the messages. You know, they call out mic check, and then everybody stops talking, and then the organizer gets up and proceeds to give out different marching orders or instructions to the group. They say alerta, alerta. That means they've detected an infiltrator or a narc or a police officer, or in my case, they recognized me as some Trump supporting ne'er-do-well from the United States, and at that point I realized I was probably on the wrong side of the protest and I had to get out. But earlier on in sort of my career, I was actually able to infiltrate some of Antifa's groups right here in Washington, D.C., before I became a little more recognizable. Prior to the inauguration of President Donald Trump, they organized a group called Disrupt J20. And you can go to their website, Disrupt J20, it's still up. But a key indicator of understanding what Antifa is.
That would be January 20, right?
January 20th, the inauguration.
Inauguration, yep.
Is that Antifa's original website for Disrupt J20, and this is so key, and it's what Raheem exactly said, it was originally intended to protest the inauguration of Hillary Clinton.
So it's not about whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. It's whether you're part of the system.
It's the system.
Let's go back to the Tommy Robinson and what was happening there on the anti-radical Islam part of this. They were very well organized in London, were they not?
Extremely.
How can CNN sit here today in MSNBC and say, oh, the President Trump has no ability to designate them as a terrorist organization because they're a domestic organization? How can anybody that's follow the news forget being a professional in a news organization? How could you possibly say that? They're an international organization with international reach. In London, they were really, to me, the drivers of most of that. You had the people out there that had legitimate issues with Tommy Robinson, right? But then you had these guys were the instigators and the agitators like they are here.
And of course, when anything kicked off in terms of violence, the police would necessarily crack down more on the right-wing people out there who, by the way, were in wheelchairs, had their prams and their buggies with them. There were families who were out they had never been to anything like that, and children there, and were absolutely shocked. And on the other side, you have the balaclava, the black bloc part of this, who are hurling things looking to provoke. But Jack, I want to get into just a sort of tangential thing on this with you as well, which is taking it back to the organizational framework of this thing. I mentioned earlier on in the show that the sort of iceberg way of dealing with things, the legitimizers, and this goes to some way to answering Steve's question about how CNN can go up there and say these things. There's a show called The Newsroom, right? I think it was an Aaron Sorkin show, actually one of my favorite shows. But early on in The Newsroom, you have one of these producers played by, I think, Neil Patel, who goes to the Occupy protests and says to them, and he's got his ACN, which is the fake news network, not the fake news network, but the pretend news network in the show, and he's wearing the lanyard from there, and she picks him out of the crowd at the Occupy thing and says, "Why are you here?" He says, I want to help you tell your story. And a lot of these guys inside mainstream media organizations have a great level of sympathy, and they want to tell Antifa's story.
Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we return, Gordon Chang is going to join the conversation here on War Room Pandemic.
Everyone loves the benefits of compression socks, but they're just so hard to get on. Until now. Introducing the all-new CopperFit Energy Socks, redesigned for the first ever easy on, easy off fit to help reduce swelling, relieve tired, achy muscles, and provide energizing support. A new blend of stretch fabric for the most comfortable, easy on, easy off compression fit.
Being a SWAT commander, we train to win. The CopperFit Energy Socks, they didn't feel like other compression socks. They totally exceeded my expectations.
Our most powerful copper-infused fabric, woven into our easy on, easy off compression sock to help reduce swelling discomfort from prolonged sitting or standing.
I'm 38 and a half weeks pregnant. CopperFit Energy Socks worked beautifully.
Extra support